All right, good morning, beautiful ladies, online and offline. Welcome to another episode of Bold TV. We are happy to host you today, and today we have a very interesting topic to address, and we're going to be lending our voices to the recently celebrated International Women's Day with the theme, Break the Bias. So we're going to be lending our voices to the discourse and also focusing specifically on women and girls with disabilities. How does the gender bias impact women and girls with disabilities? We know that women and girls with disabilities often face, a double bias of gender and disability. So today we are going to be deconstructing some of these issues and trying to, shine the light on them and see how we can find ways to move forward. So with me today are some amazing young women. Are they still young? Okay, yes, we are. Some amazing young women who are here to, contribute to this discussion. So before we move on, I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves and, tell us who they are, what they do, and where they are located. All right, over to you, ladies. Starting with you, Tomisin.
All right, thank you very much, Affion. Good morning to everybody at home, viewers watching at this time. My name is Oluwatomi Adeyefa. I'm a broadcast journalist and a gender and disability rights advocate, a member of Bold Art Network, a visually impaired, currently based in Abeokuta, Ogun State. And it feels good to be here once again. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tomisin. It's good to have you. Freki.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Freki Andrew-Essien. I'm based in Port Harcourt in Rivers State. I'm the ED of Faker Foundation, a nonprofit organization that provides stepgap support services to vulnerable individuals in different communities. I'm also a member of Bold Hearts Network, public health professional, and researcher. Thanks for having me. And yes, I am a lady on wheels.
All right, good to meet you, young woman. Next, Florence, our bionic superwoman.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Florence Marcus. I'm a lawyer, the principal partner of Florence Marcus & Co. I live and work here in Abuja. I'm also the co-founder of Amputee Coalition of Nigeria. I'm an amputee. I'm looking forward to getting the bionic. I've not gotten the bionic. I'm looking forward to getting it. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. Welcome. And finally, my name is Afia. I'm your host for today. I'm based in the UA Medical Lab Scientist, and I roll with wheels. Welcome to today's episode. Before we proceed, as usual, I'd like to put it out there that this program, we are not sponsored by any individual organization. We are able to bring this to you every Saturday, based on donations from well-meaning individuals and some organizations. So if you want to be part of this noble cause, you can reach out to any of us, the co-host, myself, Freki, Biose, or Osaki or Tomisin, and we'll guide you on how to go about it. Your support will be most welcome to help us continue to educate, inform, and sometimes entertain. So to our online audience, welcome. We are glad you are here, and your comments and contributions are also welcome. So now on to our topic for today. What is gender bias? We've been saying break the bias, crossing our arms, looking very furious. Every March 8th, women, take up arms and battle invisible forces. So today we are going to demystify this. What is gender bias? Florence.
Yes, bias is unfair treatment or prejudices against a group of people. And in this context, there are a lot of, especially in our society, which is more of a patriarchal society, there are a lot of biases against women when it comes to jobs, other things in the society, other benefits in the society. There is an assumption, that is stuck on either their person because of the biases, their capability, their potentials. For example, women participation in politics. Mostly the men discriminate against the women. Sometimes they consider them not having the potentials to be able to compete with these women. But the issue is not about them not being able to, but they are not even given a fair playing ground where they can also exhibit their potentials. There
okay. Right. Florence, I'll have to cut you off because, we are going to visit all those areas. I know you're on fire right now. Calm down, sis. We'll go there. Okay, but we just want to lay a foundation about what gender bias is so that, going forward, our audience can, understand from which platform we are building on. So I'm going to hand over to you, Freki. What is gender bias and how does this relate, in particular to women and girls with disability?
Okay, thanks, Afyong. So in joining the conversation and towing the line that Florence has started, it's a conscious or really implicit act that denies a person an opportunity or treats a person differently by reason of the person's gender. That's just what gender bias is. And it's formed from all sorts of constructs, social constructs, cultural constructs, negative stereotypes. Many things inform what by how a person presents bias. And why I said it could be unconscious is because sometimes you may not even know that you're biased, but your actions definitely would now be speaking louder than words. I think the tendency to think that bias is as a result of gender bias is that if you're a man, then you may be biased against a woman. The truth of the matter is that even women are gender biased against their fellow females. Now, bringing women with disabilities into the construct, another thing comes into play, not just gender now, but disability. Disability is what makes that bias for us double-fold, in that gender bias, which is targeted and is being differently treated by reason of your gender because of different undertones, and then we now throw disability into the construct. So you now have that intersection between gender and disability playing against the person. In this case, in our case, the woman, playing against the woman, being given the opportunity to tackle on, whether it is unconsciously or consciously. Sometimes it's explicit. The person doesn't care. The person wants you to know that person is not interested in offering this opportunity to a woman with disabilities. So for us, gender bias comes in, it's double thrown because we have the gender issue and then we now have disability being thrown into the mix to now aggravate or increase the level of bias. Thanks.
All right. So gender bias, bias can be, let me put it out there that bias can be positive, it can be negative. But in the case of gender bias, it is mostly negative because people are treated differently because of, their gender, because of what they represent. And for women and girls with disability, this often points to their disability plays a key role in how they are perceived. When women are, often barriers are placed before women, with regards to their advancement and, their choices, they are not given much choice because of their gender. Women with disabilities face even more barriers because of their disability. Thomasin, do you have something to add to this?
Absolutely, everybody has said just the way it is.
Okay. All right. So I'd like you to answer the next question. We're going to talk about different areas of where women, face bias, especially women and girls with disabilities. So we're going to start in the area of leadership. Can you share with us, some of the biases against women and girls with disabilities, when it comes to leadership?
Okay. Very interesting, holding leadership position. Now you have a lot of negative stereotypes that have placed the female gender at that point where you feel that women are emotional, women are irrational, women are unnecessarily touchy, hence they are not fit for leadership role. So you have a situation where people would say things like, oh, na woman be the oga, abajo, oh, no wonder na woman, oh, no wonder na woman they head that department. So it gives the woman who is striving for that leadership position extra work to do, because in a male-dominated environment, she has to continue to prove her worth. She has to continue to prove what she could do, what she's capable of, and still will not be given that opportunity because of her gender. Recently, we also saw what played out in the House of Representatives, where a male-dominated house voted against what would have given their female counterpart a leveling playing ground, a fair and equitable playing ground, to also be in position of leadership, to also be in position to conduct themselves and also represent their constituency. That played out, and it is still playing out in a lot of our organizations. I know of some religious organizations where a woman cannot be placed in that position of leadership. There are churches, there are mosques where women cannot lead prayer sessions, where women cannot, just stand up and then say they have an opinion, even as we speak. And then when you now bring it to women and girls with disabilities, it is worse. Because first, on the basis of gender, you're disadvantaged. And then when you add the coloration of what disability can be, it is worse. And then, you just have to keep pushing and fighting for that opportunity.
All right, thank you so much. So in other words, our emotions, they hold it against us, and yet everybody has emotions. Everybody expresses emotions.
Let's not forget that everybody is capable of showing emotions. Yeah, you hear a lot of people say men are violent, men are aggressive. It's also a form of emotions. So, and this is not to say we do not have women who are violent. This is not to say we do not have women who are aggressive, women who, want to force their way through anything. So saying that women are emotional beings or irrational beings is just a negative stereotype. It does not apply, because everybody is capable of feeling and emotions.
Okay, thank you. So our emotions are being held against us, like a gun to the head. So, but it's not a sound argument. These same emotional women are the ones who hold families together, bring people together, and are doing amazing things. Frankie, please, as a woman in leadership, as a leader yourself, and who has overseen various organizations and held certain different leadership roles, what are some of these biases that women face? If you have some personal examples, that would be good.
Okay, thanks very much. So when it comes to leadership, and remember we're speaking to women with disabilities, that construct, that interaction that comes up with disability, considering the fact that women already face challenges when they want to ascend leadership positions. Example, one of the strong things that affects bias is social constructs. So what is the norm? What is the social norm that is prevailing in the minds in a patriarchal society? It is that the woman's place is in social and so place. Is that certain jobs are for social and so gender. Those are social norms, regular norms. In fact, somebody said, pick a child, and it was a nice experiment because it just proved, how people can raise children and throw biases on children. So it was a nursery school, and it was career day, because I read it on the internet. It was career day. So they brought different persons, different parents, different people who had different jobs. And then they said that the children should guess who had the job. So when they will say, who do you think is a nurse? All the children will point to the female. Who do you think is an engineer? They will point to the male. Who do you think is an astronaut? Point to the male. That's without any information. In fact, it now shocked the children when they now found out that the astronaut was the female, the nurse was the male, the chef was the female. It just, blew it out of the window. So the person was just trying to show how internal biases are formed, even from when we are young. So imagine a society that is now reinforcing it, or these social norms are reinforced by cultural biases. So first of all, the woman with disability ascending to leadership is seen as a woman who is about to abandon her home. Then you now come and add disability on top. They're like, Haba, the struggle is real. Why are you struggling so much? So you now find that you have to now doubly or triply prove yourself when you don't necessarily need to. You now have to do that extra push just to prove that, please do not judge my content by the container. It takes a lot of willpower and strength. So people's minds are already a barrier. And then another thing that I noticed that comes up a lot, at least I feel it, is what we call the imposter syndrome. All of a sudden, you ask yourself when you are sent to leadership, do I deserve it? Real internal turmoil that can even cause you to now be biased against yourself, that you feel that you don't even deserve to ascend to this leadership position. And finally, not able to build alliances with persons of your fellow gender can also be a challenge, or that I've seen, that women with disabilities in leadership face. So you have these things going on, fueling the construct of gender bias. And when disability is thrown in, it's really aggravated. I use this opportunity, these examples, because these are things that I have experienced in my work and in my growth. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That was quite illustrative, and unfortunately, the example you gave about children is quite unfortunate. How we project our fears, our biases, our, wrong mindsets and thinking to our unconscious, to our children. We make them think this is as far as you can go because you're a girl. I remember growing up when, we would be told, oh, your brother shouldn't be in the kitchen because he's a boy. It's okay for him to go out and play football and watch TV and do just live life, while you are supposed to be, stuck indoors, acting, playing girl or playing woman to be. Even when you're playing those, remember those games when we were young, you're playing those games and automatically those roles are assigned. You're the mommy, you're the this, you're supposed to do the cooking, take care of the children. Then the daddy is only supposed to carry a suitcase and leave the house and come back. In spite of changing times, these things persist, these stereotypes persist. Florence, can you briefly share something about this?
Okay, yes, just to also lend a voice to the issue of the societal perception of disability, the negative societal perception of disability. The people are so myopic sometimes that they don't look beyond the disability. And disability has been associated with a lot of things. For example, someone seeing a lady on a wheelchair, all he concludes is that that disability probably had affected her mental ability and all of that. Let me share an experience I had while in the university. I was nominated for a position in the fellowship. It was even a fellowship. So these things that we're talking about, these biases, spans across every sector in the society. When I went for the screening, the panel first asked me, have you ever held leadership positions in the past? I said, yes. I reeled out the leadership positions from secondary school and all of that. I said, wow, that's good. What is your CGPA? I told them I had a good CGPA. Then they said, oh, but we cannot just downplay the fact that you are a person with disability. How will you be able to cope? For me, it was an insult. I was taken aback. These are people I relate with every day. These are people that have seen me, work with them and all of that. Even by knowing my CGPA, they should know that I was not a dummy. So why are they bringing disability now? For me, it was I answered them. I gave them a very good answer, which I don't believe they were. I don't know whether they were convinced or not. I don't care. But there and then I withdrew. Even after answering them, I just withdrew. Unfortunately, I allowed my emotions to take the better part of me because I believe so much in that cycle and I was not expecting any sort of discrimination from them. So, people sometimes tend to have a very negative perception. They overlook the potentials of persons with disabilities, women with disabilities especially. I don't know if I still have time to share one. Something that happened just this morning. A lady that is a lawyer on wheelchair called me this morning and said, I was in court yesterday and this was what happened. The other lawyer was not in court and all of that. But he called my client and said, that he went and chose a cripple as a lawyer. He's going to deal with him and that he's cripple lawyer. So it's not just because she's a woman, but also she's a person with disability. What he said is enough to affect even her own client, his confidence in her, because they are now calling his lawyer a cripple, and that other man, he's a man, he's strong, and he's saying he's going to deal with his lawyer. That can force that guy to go look for another lawyer because it may affect his confidence in the lady lawyer. So sometimes they overlook our potentials. And these are daily things that we live with every day. And also the things that...
Florence.
Okay, sorry.
I'll have to cut you off. We'll come back to that when we address workplace environment because these things are real. It's frustrating. I don't blame you for getting emotional about it because sometimes you feel like you've had it up to here. It really is frustrating. People many times the potential in women and women with disabilities is often overlooked just because people choose to see what's in front of them without bothering to find out, is there more? All right. So now we're going to move on to our next question. And that is with regards to, since we've already brought up the workplace environment, we're going to move to that. What are some of the barriers that women with disabilities face in the workplace environment? For those of us, for example, I can tell you that I've shared this story many times here about, when I first got employed, everybody was like, what can she do? What will she be able to do? And, they were looking for the most menial and the most, unengaging task to give me, just something to get me out of, something that would just keep me at the backyard where they won't see too much of me. And then they would just move on. And I was like, see these people, you think I traveled how many miles from where I live to come across states to come here and sit down and look at you people, with my degree and all. But these are some of the real things that women face and then women with disabilities face in the workplace. It is difficult enough being a woman because you're seen as subpar compared to the men. Things that, job opportunities and tasks that would, readily be handed over to men, whether they are competent or not. When it comes to the woman, she's questioned over and over. She has to prove herself and even jump through so many hoops just to be given an opportunity to serve. And at the end of the day, she ends up doing so much better. And even then, she's not acknowledged. She's not acknowledged for her efforts. So in the workplace environment, what are some of the barriers? One of those is that women are often overlooked when it comes to opportunities, to contribute. Most of them are overlooked. And like the example Florence gave, they are questioned, especially if she has a disability. Their ability is questioned. Can she do this or can she not? And that often, already, casts a shadow over her abilities and often denies her opportunities that she would have. And in some cases, she's overlooked for promotion, even when she has proven herself. So Freki, can you add to this? I think you've had some employment experience and you know what that feels like.
Okay, so Sorry, my network is doing in and out. So I think I had mentioned some of the workplace experiences when I was talking about leadership, ascending to leadership position, that some of the challenges that women and girls with disability or women with disabilities would face. So specifically in the workplace, I think what you just described was apt. That thought of not being given what's deserved because pity or sympathy has come into play. So I remember when I had to do some work in a health center, and immediately I got there, the first response to me was, number one, oh, you don't have to come, in fact, at all. It was, no, don't worry so much, we understand. And I'm like, what do you understand? And that I'm supposed to come here and do my work. If the work is remote work, that's different, but it needs me to be here to be able to do the health talks and things like that. And the person was like, I know, don't worry. We don't want to stress you. I say, it's not stress. It's not fun. I enter my car, I come, I work, I go. So I needed to break that bias. She thought she was doing it out of, you understand, well, let me not stress this lady. But it was uncalled for. And I do understand that a lot of persons, and I'm hoping I'm helping a person with disability that may want to jump up to that. It was absolutely unnecessary. I understand that it can be stressed, but how does deciding for me that I don't have to come. Then at the end of the day, no, I'll just come sign and go. I was like, no, I want to come and work. And that whole thing also helped the mindset, because all of a sudden she just saw there was no difference. The only thing they needed to do was ensure that everywhere I needed to be was accessible. So that worked out. So that's an example of workplace. Another one was that I experienced was where the director did not know how to engage me. Did not know what my limits are, did not know what how far. Meanwhile, the job description was clear on what it would be. But I now found out that I was not being assigned any duties. I was not told to do anything. I was just coming, smiling at everybody and going. So I now had to go and ask and be like, so why am I here? To everybody. So the truth now came out that actually we did not know your limits. I said, did you ask me whether I have or I don't have? And things like that. So engaging always helps. So rather than sit back and feel angry or upset about it, or feel liberated by not doing anything but collecting money at the end, so I had to engage. So those are some of the biases that I think, because of the misconstructions about disability, disabilities, fragility, disabilities, you cannot work, those kind of things. And then being a woman, I don't just get ready, don't worry, let's not stress you. So those are some experiences I have. Thanks.
You see that don't do anything, don't worry. That's how they just dumped me somewhere and left me there for almost a year. I had to go and complain. They gave me the most simplest task, something that even an intern or even a technician could do. That's what they assigned to me and just dumped me there for the next 1 year, because they felt, let's not bother. They just didn't want to be, most times they don't want to bother to think about ways to engage with you. They don't want to put in that effort because it requires effort. Sometimes as simple as asking the person, how can we help you? Is what, in what way can can we work with you? But most of them don't even bother to communicate. And that's the worst bias, treating that person as if the person cannot speak for themselves. So I think it starts with communicating and getting information. Just ask. And if you ask and you don't get the answers you need, then okay, I've tried. Then you can go and probably do research and find out, how can we work with this person? What can we do to make it better? All right, Thomasin. Hello, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, so we are going to move on to education. And this particularly affects girls with disability, young girls with disability, and young women. What are some of the biases and barriers that young women and girls with disability face when it comes to education?
Okay, let me start by sharing a personal experience I once had.
Okay, we'll have to be
after
brief.
My
out of time.
JAMB examination, I had the opportunity to choose a school for myself, and it was Mashood Abiola Polytechnic back then. And I visited the school to purchase my post-UTME for myself. I was there in line with several other people. And I was beginning to get tired because, there was so much about 5,000 of us waiting to get our forms. And so I approached one of the officials. Excuse me, sir, I'm here to purchase this. Is there a way you can be of help? And then he said, you shouldn't be here now. Why don't you go to a place where they accept your kind? Now, where they accept my kind for him would be a school where only persons with disabilities could attend, and they could have access to education. So he didn't believe in the inclusive mainstream education. And I remember that this was the same question that almost everybody I came in contact with, that I told that I was going back to school after my disability and all. The question is usually, how would you cope? How would you learn? A friend of my mom once told my mom, are you sure this girl is not just collecting fees from you? Are you sure she's actually in school learning? So in a society where female education is a thing, is something we all are concerned about. A lot of families, a lot of tribes, a lot of communities don't believe in educating a female child, because you come up with that construct saying that, oh, with all the degree, a woman will still end up in her husband's kitchen and the other room. So it's, to them, a waste of resources, a waste of time, and a waste of energy. Adding disability to that equation makes it worse. So if you have a child, a female child who is with a disability in a tribe, come from a tribe where they don't even believe in female education, asking such parents or such guardians to send such a child to school or to an inclusive school, it's something that you have to battle. It's something that you have to battle. And coupled with the fact that, we are vulnerable. Before you know it, you don't educate your female child who has got a disability. A miscreant just comes along with there and impregnates the poor child, or just takes advantage, undue advantage of the poor child. So it's a double jeopardy, if you ask me.
All right, thank you so much. That personal experience you shared, we've seen it. So many girls, the girl child is already, affected by, low literacy levels. You have a lot of girl children not being sent to school because parents think, oh, why waste money? At the end of the day, number one, she's not going to carry on the family name. She'll bear somebody else's name. And number two, well, let's focus on the one that is going to that will come and take care of the family. So there's a lot of bias against the girl child. And then when she has a disability, she's seen as a lost cause. There's no point investing in her. And then, she ends up becoming a victim of, society and so many other negative occurrences because she has not been empowered to help herself. So Florence, how can women and girls with disabilities, how can they overcome some of these barriers and stop being a barrier to themselves? Because one thing we have, I think, was it Freki that brought it up, that many times we are the bias. We are biased against ourselves. We are the ones that, by believing what people say about us, by accepting the stereotypes, we are the ones that we become biased against ourselves. We are the ones who tell ourselves we can't do it. We are the ones who tell ourselves there's no point trying. We become the bias and the barrier against ourselves. So how can women and girls with disabilities stop being the bias and, setting up barriers against themselves?
Okay, I will advise that first you have to believe in yourself. Believe in your potentials. Look out for those innate potentials that God has given you. I believe in proving people wrong, especially things that they have assumed that you cannot do them. You have to go against the odds to become who you want to be, especially when you have the opportunity, because what you do will help another person with disability tomorrow. Let me share an instance. My prosthetics, that was when I was going to the university. I went to fix my prosthetics. It was my uncle that took me that time. I traveled and my uncle took me to the hospital. So my uncle told the man I was going to the university, he said, which university? Why are you wasting your time? This girl is a person with disability. The best thing is to marry her out. By the time she's 25, 30, she'll have somebody to help her. How are you sure she's going to cope? I mentioned prosthetics to tell you that this is somebody that is informed. This is somebody that is working, that is supposed to be, give me rehabilitation. And that is the kind of mindset that he has. My cousin said, why is she going to study law? Why not go to College of Education? Are you sure she'll be able to cope? But I proved them wrong by becoming who I know that I have the ability to become. So when we do that, we'll set an example to others who are following. No matter what they say about you, don't just accept that and settle with it and say, no, this is fine, this is what they have said. No, you don't have excuse whatsoever. So I encourage women, go out there, prove them wrong. If opportunity is not given all the time, take the opportunity, especially when it comes to education, take the opportunity. Leadership position, take the opportunity. Present yourself. Don't just sit in your room and lament. Some of us, yes, we can share that this is the narrative, but we are taking steps to make these things work for us and for others around us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Imagine the potential that would have gone to waste. Imagine the potential that would have gone to waste just because somebody could not think beyond where he was. And, so many young girls and, women with disabilities are facing these same negative stereotypes. They are being told what they can and cannot do. But I think it's high time that we move past that. It's high time you begin to question, those doubts. Begin to question what people think about you. Begin to question what you think about yourself. Is this all there is? Can there be more? It's high time, women and girls, when I hear people with disabilities ask, oh, is this for us? There's no us. We are humans first. We are women next. The disability is just an add-on. So don't allow that to, always guide your, decisions. So let's try as much as possible to not to be a bias against ourselves. Frankie, do you have anything to add to this?
Okay, so this is my take. I'm going to talk to everyone. I'm going to talk to women with disabilities first. There are two things that you can do, give up or not. And I want to encourage you not to give up on yourself, because you should be your fan first, then others may or may not fall into line. Don't be a perpetrator of bias against other women with disabilities, because I've noticed that too within the disability community, that women with disabilities, rather than be solidarity, working with other women, tend to also now become biased against other women with disabilities. I think that's a faulty line to toe. The next would be to society. The world has continued to advance and move forward. Social norms are more inclusive. And we just want to put it out there that whether the chance is given or not, like Florence said, we will continue to rise up to the challenge, break the status quo, break the bias wherever we can, and continue to move forward. So join us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Tomisin, what advice do you have for either government or family or the woman and girl with disability? Just one of those people.
Okay, so my advice to every woman and girl with disability out there is continue to be strong, continue to empower yourself, be the best at whatever it is you want to do. When people say there's no road, construct your own road. I mean that metaphorically now. So when people assume you cannot, show that you can. It has a way of opening doors for other women. So for instance, if we are being delegated to carry out a task and you do it efficiently, when another woman or girl with disabilities coming with a resume for that same task in future, it is easy for them to allow or give that opportunity because somebody has laid a precedent that cannot be ignored. So we should always strive to be the best at whatever it is we do. And I would also say to the society that persons with disabilities, women and girls with disabilities, they are humans too and should be treated as such. You know, we are talking about breaking the bias, we are talking about breaking the gender bias, we should also add that break the gender and disability bias. You know, whatever it is a woman who is without a disability can do, a woman who is with a disability can do it as well and as much if given the right opportunity to thrive.
All right, thank you so much. Break the gender and disability bias. So to round up, I'm just going to say this. To the government, it's high time you acknowledge that these are your citizens. You can't keep burying your head in the sand and say, oh, ignore, pretend that we don't exist. Persons with disabilities exist. It's time to acknowledge that your citizens are diverse, and also see how you can tap into the potential inherent in this diversity. Find a way to acknowledge. So many women, people with disabilities, in spite of the barriers against them, are making so many, inroads into achieving so many things. So it is high time you begin to acknowledge this untapped pool of potential and begin to find ways to bring us to the table so that you can benefit from our wealth of wisdom and experience. And to that woman or girl with disability, you owe yourself a duty to see how far you can go. I always say there's a solution to every problem. Whenever challenges come up, that tells you that there is something that needs to be done about it. And if nothing has been done so far, then probably you are the one who has the solution. So don't sell yourself short. Don't see yourself as any less. As long as your brain is intact and you're capable of thinking, give yourself the benefit of the doubt. See yourself as someone who can move forward and bring change. You might just be the answer to that problem. So today, I hope we've been able to encourage you. I hope we've been able to, educate and inform. And I hope that, going forward, that glass ceiling will finally come down, not just for women, but also for women and girls with disability. And that we will be given opportunities to showcase all that we are capable of doing. So I want to say a big thank you to the women here who have, contributed. Thank you, Freki. Thank you, Florence. Thank you, Tomisin, for showing up. As usual, you ladies have been so amazing.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for your valuable contributions. And to our online audience, as you watch this, unfortunately, we couldn't be live today because of network issues. But as you watch this program, I hope that, you will also benefit from the wealth of wisdom that we have shared here and the knowledge. So, and to our, would-be sponsors, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for always being there for us. And we hope that next week you will join us for another interesting episode on Bold TV, 10:30 a.m., same time next week, with another amazing panel of discussants. So we'll see you next week. To all my wonderful ladies here, unmute yourselves and just say bye-bye. We'll see you next week, Saturday. Bye.
Bye.
Break the bias and
Thank
don't
you.
be the bias. Break the bias and don't be the bias. See ya.